topic. This is a new series on your way out. Please take a sheet. This is a new series. Having a couple of weeks break. Awesome. A couple of stories I want to tell you first. There's a joke. 3 Jewish mothers meet. The first says oi. The second one says oi vei. And the third one says oi vei's mia. So the first one said, I thought we agreed we're not going to talk about our children. The second story is about a person who filled in an application for insurance. One of the questions he had to answer was, how old was your father when he died? And of what did he die? Well, his father had been hanged for murder, but he did not like to put that in his application. He puzzled over it for a while. He finally wrote, he says, my father was 65 when he died. He came to his end while participating in a public function when the platform gave way. So that's sometimes a rabbi is in that position, you're on a public platform, and sometimes, who knows, it might give way. But that's when we talk about this topic. This topic is Jewish identity crisis. With the crisis we're facing today, it's a problem of assimilation in today's society. It's rampant. It's probably the biggest crisis we're facing in America as Jews. There's a story by Rabbi Jacobitz, the chief rabbi of England, the former chief rabbi of England. He tells us a story of a gentleman who was waiting at a train station for a train. And he was an elderly gentleman. And a young man comes up to him and he says, please sir, can you tell me the time? He says, nope. So he says, please, he says, I see you have a watch. He says, please tell me the time. He says, no. He says, why won't you tell me the time? He says, look, he says, if I tell you the time, he says, you'll start making conversation with me. You'll sit with me on the train. You'll find out I have a young daughter. You'll meet my daughter. You'll get married. And I don't want my daughter to marry someone who doesn't even have a watch. In other words, there's consequences which are started from a very early age, which we don't really think about. But the chain of events starts off like a train going on a small journey and leading to a bigger development. So also in our lives. We may not pay attention to the small things, but these small things are leading up to big things. And these big things are problems facing Jews today. And that is a problem of survival in terms of Judaism. And I've got the statistics here, they're very, very amazing statistics, is that today over 50% of Jews intermarry. 50%, it's interesting, the statistics are 50% of the rich and 50% of the poor. Okay, the middle income bracket is much less. It's interesting. Why? I don't know. Very interesting. The majority of those whose family income is 200,000 or more, and those whose family income is less than 12,500 a year, are intermarried. So it's a bipolar economic intermarriage rate. The willingness with which Jews intermarry leads us to believe that the majority of American Jews sees Judaism as irrelevant to their lives. They are not interested, uninvolved, dropping off and dropping out. The basic problem, therefore, is not just intermarriage, what has led to intermarriage. The continual erosion of Jewish commitment, Jewish values, and Jewish knowledge. In the past, Jewish communities demonstrated their vitality by successfully responding to the challenges of oppression. Today we must respond to the challenges of freedom. So basically what we have is freedom. People are free to do whatever they want, and they're gone. There's another interesting story. It says, many Jewish leaders were flying to Washington, the high-powered breakfast meeting with the president. And on the way they lost their children. That's what happened today. That's what's happening today around us. The leaders of the Jewish people are involved with big things. What happened? They lost their children on the way. There was a survey done about the leaders of all these different organizations. That 50% of their children intermarried. I mean, if they're the leaders, where are we? Where are we left with? Less than half of Jewish children today are being raised as Jews. 46% are being raised as Jews. 38% are being raised in other religions. 38% of all Jewish children today. 16% are being raised with no religion. There's an interesting midrash. The midrash says that at Mount Sinai, God asked the Jewish people, he says, I'm not going to give you the Bible. You don't deserve it. Unless you can tell me what is going to be your guarantee for the future. The Jew says, our children are going to be the guarantee. Today, our children can't be the guarantees because who's going to guarantee for them? So that's the problem which we're facing today. So even though Jewish children throughout the ages have been guarantors of Jewish continuity, today Jewish children cannot be guarantees of the Jewish community. And we have different options. First one is we can button down the hatches and limit our concerns to those we already have, committed Jews. This means we will be less and less involved with the vast majority of the American Jewish community. Second option is we can work primarily for greater aliyah, making Jews move to Israel, try and get Jews to move to Israel before they're lost totally. The third one is we can acknowledge the problem is difficult and challenging, but one that can be no longer ignored, and that we develop a plan to reach out to unaffiliated secular Jews and bring them back to a commitment, to committed Judaism. So those are problems, and this I'm reading to you from the RCA record. The RCA is the Rabbinical Council of America, the largest Orthodox group in the country. So they're also thinking about this issue. It's a big problem. The Federation also, they paid a lot of money for the survey. A very depressing survey. This highlights of the 1990 National Jewish Population Survey. What does it say? $1 million. Don't know if it was worth it, but I'm going to wake people up. Here we are. Jews by religion. 4.4 million. It was the born Jews who are still Jews today. Jewish descent, altogether, 6.6 million. The people who descend from Jews. So 4.4 million are still Jewish.
When the Federation refers to Jewish descent,
right? Any descent.
So mother, father,
right.
One, both, any?
One, any.
Okay.
Any. And then you have one grandparent, 8.2 million. So it's a very, 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 amazing statistic today. And that is, as I said, the biggest problem we're facing today. And the problem with this is it's a silent Holocaust, in that, people are not shouting, people are not screaming, people are not crying, and it's just going on around us. That's one of the problems we're facing today. The question is, what do we do about it? So to paraphrase the words of Charles Dickens, for Jews living today in America, it is the best of times and the worst of times. This is perhaps the first time in American Jewish history that we have created an educated, committed, and knowledgeable segment of the community with a broad array of supportive institutions, religious and secular, that is dedicated to its own continuity. Unfortunately, this segment of committed Jews represents only 10 to 15% of the total population. So say 6 million Jews, 10%, 600,000 Jews are committed Jews. 85 to 90 are indifferent and Jewishly ignorant, totally ignorant of what's going on. And the less than 15% of the knowledgeable committed Jews have had little or no impact among the more than 85% of ignorant and indifferent Jews. So that's a big problem in terms of what do we do about it? And what are we going to have? What are the problems which we're facing? Today, with high rates of intermarriage, the cumulative effect among Jews the world over is liable to result in losses comparable to the extermination of 1/3 of our people in the Nazi Holocaust. So in other words, we're going to lose about 1/3 of the people, minimum. At least 1/3 of all the Jews today. How many Jews are there in the world today?
14 million.
Around 12. 12 million.
Oh, I guess 14 million was 20 years ago
All
or
right,
something.
unfortunately. That's what's going on, unfortunately.
When I was in school, it was 14 million.
Okay. After the Holocaust, there were 18 million Jews. 24 million Jews before the Holocaust, 18 million after. Today we're down to 12. We're shrinking rapidly. So there's lower birth rate, there's people are getting married later, and a lot of intermarriage and a lot of assimilation. So probably the only place where Jews are going to survive in great numbers is Israel. It's the only place where Jewish population is growing. The statistics for America are very bleak, and unfortunately all the wealth of the American Jewry is not being invested in the right places. You know, the Federation raising money. Where does the money go? It goes to help Russian Jews make Aliyah, it goes to help Israel, fine. What about Jewish education over here? You know why most Jewish kids don't go to school? It's because the fees are prohibitive. Okay? Why don't people send their kids to Jewish schools? First question they'll tell you is, I can't afford $6,000, $7,000, $8,000 a year per kid. It's enormous. It's a private school. And this is a problem mainly in America. In Europe, there is no separation of church and state. There's Jewish schools are free, and there's a much lower level of intermarriage. And that would be true in England, or in a place where they have both available, pretty much on the same level. But that is the major problem we're facing. The question is, what do we do with it? So it's a very less dramatic than the mass slaughter of 6 million Jews, and that aggravates the situation. When Jews are lost through registrar office marriages instead of gas chambers, no one weeps, no one protests, and no one demonstrates. Imagine the New York Times, the list of forthcoming marriages is the obituary column of the Jewish people. It's an obituary column. I have a whole article over here. Amazing article, New Yorker magazine. You look at the names on this.
Even in the Federation, a lot of times there are announcements of weddings and engagements.
Look at this.
Yeah, a lot of news.
High society. Okay. Caroline Kennedy and Edwin Schlossberg.
Yeah.
Kenneth Cole and Maria Cuomo. That's Cuomo's daughter. Calvin and Kelly Klein. And of course you have the Kissingers. So it's going right through. Huh?
Tyler Moore's husband is Jew.
Okay, there's so many. If you want to list the names, it just...
All these Jewish doctors around marrying shiksas. How come I can't find one?
You can. But they're not looking for you. Okay. Ms. Roosevelt wed C.H. Silberstein. It's the granddaughter of the President Roosevelt. She married a Jewish psychiatrist. Okay.
Why is it usually male men marry?
It's not true. It's not true.
Just have to
That's a fallacy.
Ann
At one
Landers'
time it
daughter
was.
Ann Landers' daughter married...
At one time that was true.
Thomas Jefferson in 1776.
Okay, so at one time that was true, but not anymore. Now it's 50-50. Men, women, there's no difference. Okay, so I have a whole article, a very interesting article. If you want to have a look at it later. Pardon? Okay. So in the past, 3 factors combined to contain the flood of intermarriage. Number 1, there was an intense love and understanding of Judaism, which unfortunately is evaporating. Number 2, there was the deterrent of public disgrace. Everyone lived in a very tight community. Today this is true in the Syrian community, the Syrian Jewish community today in Brooklyn or Deal. It's a very tight community. You intermarry, you're out. That's it. Goodbye. Don't want to know you anymore. The parents said Shiva. At one time parents would mourn. They would actually say Kaddish on a child who intermarried. That doesn't apply today. Thirdly, a social climate generally unfavorable to mixed marriages, which is both from within the Jewish people and without the Jewish people. So just as much as the Jewish parents will be mourning, the Catholic parents will be mourning, or the Protestant parents will be mourning, One guy says, he woke up one day and he said he was in bed with two of the things which his mother hated the most, a Jew and a cat. So it's one of his, I think he's an author, okay. So when a young person stands on the brink of temptation, drawn by the attraction of a partner, obviously the primary and strongest safeguard is a passionate love of Judaism. So what's the problem today is, the problem is Jewish education starts and ends at childhood. It starts at the age of 5 whenever they come to Hebrew school. If they come to Hebrew school, they're lucky, and it ends at 13. And they're still kids. What do they know at 13? Immature. Girls 12. Immature totally. So it's stunted. So it's hardly surprising that given a chance encounter proves a stronger attraction than the slight bond they have with Judaism. The battle against intermarriage does not begin at age 16 or 17, when young people start to date seriously. By then the battle is already won or lost. If they don't know about Judaism by then, they don't care. It's no use. It's too late already. It's a story of the mother brought her son to the rabbi. She said, "Rabbi, my son is 5 years old. Please start educating." He says, "You're too late." So, "What do you mean?" So, educate starts at day 1. It's not when he's 5 years old, 6 years old. It starts from when he's a child and a baby. What he hears, what he sees, all these things.
Bring him in at 5.
Oh, definitely. I'm not questioning that. I'm not questioning that.
It's better than bringing him in at 25 and saying he's marrying a shiksa to stop him. And there are plenty that do that too. And they don't understand that they don't bring them up properly. They're not going to...
There's a story about a mother went to the doctor, went to a psychiatrist. She says, "I have trouble with my son." He says, "What's the problem?" So what he does all day is chews gum and blows bubbles. So what? That's normal, childish behavior. I said, "No," he says, "Doctor, you don't understand. He's 25. So that's a problem. Okay. So young people may earn graduate degrees in chemistry or history, but have only a kindergarten acquaintance with Judaism. It's one of the things. I was at a conference once with different rabbis, and we were discussing the advantages of a rabbi having a good education, a university education. So one rabbi says, "Look, I never had a university education, and I don't feel the loss of it. Why? Because I go into, say, a university professor, and he starts talking to me about chemistry and physics. I open up a Hebrew book and I say, 'Can you read this line for me?' He says, 'But I don't even know Aleph Bet, which is the ABC of Judaism.' He says, so I don't feel bad. I'm way ahead of these people. I'm light years ahead of them. On my own topic, I am like a professor and they're like 2-year-olds, because they don't even know the Aleph Bet. It's like going to college and saying, I don't even know ABC. So how can you understand Judaism without even knowing how to read? I mean, how many Jews know how to read today? It's a terrible distortion today. It's unfortunate.
Dear rabbis, I can't read you.
Not so loud, man. Okay. So young people may earn graduate degrees, but they don't know much about Judaism. They know kindergarten Judaism. The home must be genuinely Jewish. The association of joy and Judaism is vital. So the home must be Jewish, but not a Jewish which is dead. The Jewish which is live, vibrant, and joyous.
And
The kids will grow up.
Negative. You
Not
can't
like
do
that.
this, you
Right,
can't do that,
right,
you can't do
right.
the
It's
other
got to be
thing.
joyous. The key is simcha. Ivdu Hashem b'simcha. Serve God with joy. When kids see the parents happy that they're Jews, doing commandments with happiness, when it's done through half-heartedness and the TV's on and they're hearing the scores and this and that and the other, and the Seder night becomes a farce and a joke and everything. And then the parent turns to the son and says, "Son," he says, "why? I raised you as a Jew. I did everything for you. I gave you everything. Why did you do this to me?" I said, "Come on, Dad, you're a hypocrite. How many times did you go to synagogue a year? What are you going to answer?" It's a very tough issue. So those are the questions. The first solution is the home. The home must be Jewish, and joy and Judaism is vital. Such Jewish moments as lighting Sabbath and holiday candles must be joyously and continuously celebrated. Books of Jewish interest and Jewish journals and newspapers must be visible and accessible. When I was a kid, we used to do Kiddush on Friday nights, and we used to read Jewish newspapers. Okay, but at least a Jewish newspaper is better than watching soccer or baseball or something on TV. At least it gives you some sort of idea what problems we're facing. I mean, talk about the problems we're facing as Jews today. The family must belong and attend, not just belong to a synagogue. We have many members on paper, but if we had these members coming here every day, we'd be packed every day. So not just belonging, but also attending synagogue.
Or even if they came once a week.
If they came once a week, I wish. Contributing to the Jewish community, they can't see it. They don't see it. They don't realize. People don't realize the connection. People don't realize the connection between the children coming to synagogue and the children marrying Jews. They don't see the connection. There's a big connection over here. I had one of the greatest moments of my life was a couple of weeks ago. A little girl was crying. It was Shabbat morning. We had a Shabbat morning service over here. A little girl was crying. So I asked the parent, "Why is she crying?" The parent said, "Rabbi, she doesn't want to leave." I said, "Wow." I said, "This is great." So she was enjoying herself. It's great. Little kids come here, enjoy themselves. They have a positive feeling. They don't leave. This is Judaism. This is living Judaism. This is beautiful Judaism. This is what they're going to remember. And this is where they grow up. They're going to say, we want our children to have the same kind of thing. So family is important. Jewish education, formal or informal, is the greatest bulwark against intermarriage. And basically Jewish education is informal. Jewish camps are a big key to our survival. Israel, going on vacation, sending a kid to vacation. I had a kid over here, he's a member of the shul, totally religious. His father wasn't Jewish, a university professor, his mother's Jewish. Totally lost. What happens? He decides he's going to go to Israel for a summer. He went to Israel, you wouldn't believe the change in the person. He's proud he's a Jew. Why you go to Israel? You see what the Jews have done in 40 years. Where people have been living there for thousands of years, nothing happened. Sort of for 40 years, things began to change, and from nothing you have a very advanced society. Basically, the desert is blooming again. It's the only country in the world which is pushing the desert back. All the other countries, including America, the desert is increasing. There's only one country in the world which is pushing back the desert. That is Israel. It's amazing. People don't talk about these statistics. The pride is being knocked out because of propaganda. The constant negative propaganda is getting, too much. Even Jews are believing it. So informal education is more subtle and closer to the home environment than is the formal instruction in school. Over here in Hebrew school, we try and make it as informal as possible. Kids have to have fun in Hebrew school. So kids will say, I want to go to Hebrew school. What happens normally is a kid hates Hebrew school. 13, turned off Judaism, turned off Hebrew school, turned off synagogue, I don't want to see the place again. So there's one rabbi, one of the former rabbis of this place he said, I'm here to hatch, match, and dispatch. Whereas when the child is born, and the child gets married, and dispatching them, unfortunately funerals. So that's what he said, his function was to hatch, match, and dispatch. And that is a very unfortunate statement. That's the only time. So you tell the kid at his bar mitzvah, see you later, hopefully at your wedding, if not at a funeral. That's a terrible indictment of society today. Friends should be carefully screened, since peer influence is often greater than parental influence. A person has to be concerned for the ethical values of their children, attitudes to life, to Judaism, to school, and to the community. So that's a very important. Peer pressure is very, very important. There's a lovely midrash which illustrates this. The midrash talks about Moses. Where was Moses for the majority of his life? Do you know? Midian. He was born in Egypt, raised in Egypt. But as soon as he left the king's palace, he saw terrible injustices to the Jewish people, which he couldn't stomach. So he got involved and trying to save the Jews from that early age. What happened was the Jews turned against him. So this is what their people are like. I want to have nothing to do with them. He runs away to Midian. He marries a Midianite girl. He settles there till the age of 80. He has children with her. He settles there. His father is a former priest to idolatry. What kind of life is this? This is total assimilation. Moses is totally assimilated. If he wouldn't have had the vision of the burning bush, there'd be no Moses today. Moses would have gone totally. Okay? So Midrash says It says when he got married, he made a deal with his father-in-law that his grandsons would know both religions. This is the Midrash saying, look, you're not Jewish, I'm Jewish, let's make a deal. What we'll do is, we'll split 50-50, one son for you, one son for me, we'll split the time between you and me, we'll teach him about different cultures. It says Moses swore that one of his sons would be an idolater. How could Moses, who's meant to be the epitome, something we should be all, a role model for everyone, how could he swear that his son would be an idolater? It doesn't make sense. And the answer is the fact that he lived there for so long. In that environment, it's as if he swore that he'd be an idolater. Because the environment we bring up the children in, is if we're guaranteeing their future. As you sow, so shall you reap.
If you look at, you never see Moshe's sons being mentioned
Zero.
in leadership roles. Or they're born and that's it.
Right. In fact, his grandson is mentioned. Only there's no mention of Moses' name by him. It does tell us, it says, a man from the house of Levi went out and set up idols. The idols of Micha. Remember that? Pesel Micha? Later on in the book of Judges, that was Moses' grandson, an idol worshipper. Why? He brought him up badly. When he brought him up, he wasn't Moses. He was running away. He was assimilated. Yes.
How did he get to be chosen?
How did he?
Why him?
I think it's because in his early years, he showed this leadership quality. He was willing to put down his life for the sake of his people. They didn't appreciate it, so he ran away. But he had that quality of self-denial for the sake of the people.
That story about the sheep, their little lamb.
Right. Okay. That's a midrash. That's a midrash. But this is biblical in order. As soon as he got out of the palace, the first day he went out of the palace, he goes there and he sees an Egyptian beating a Jew. He tries to save him. First day. He could have just said, look, I'm going to be the next Pharaoh. To hell with everyone else. I don't care. He's willing to sacrifice himself for that. So he saw they weren't ready. They weren't ready yet. He ran away. Okay. So Israel is very important. Participation in Jewish social causes is also of great value in strengthening one's Jewish identity. Parents must not forget that they are an important part of a Jewish environment. Because the parents themselves are Jewish. They can't forget, I'm Jewish. I'm going to make sure I do Jewish things. But if parents the child doesn't see his parents doing anything Jewish, what symbolism is Jewish though? My parents were Jewish, so what does that mean? It means nothing. Or if a parent is pretending Judaism, the child will detect it on failing accuracy. So that's something which people have to think. These three things which we have to build on: the home, schools, and Israel. Those are three things which we have to really build up to create more of an identity. So intermarriage raises all sorts of problems. When a son is born, will he be circumcised or baptized? Will the baby be named in a synagogue or in a church? December is a crisis month. Will it be Christmas, Hanukkah, Kriska, or Hanumas? A permanent confusion and loss of integrity. How will the families feel? The in-laws. Normally we all have in-laws. In-laws are outlaws. But in intermarriage we have enemies, not just in-laws.
Two armed camps.
Right. Not anymore. That's one of the reasons why it's so widespread now. Is it possible that they would cause no dissension? If they do, should you cut them off and thereby cut off any chance for an extended family? One of the unconscious motives for having children is the desire to assure a life beyond your own existence, a sort of immortality. Will parents see in their grandchildren some continuation of their own lives? They have Jewish grandparents and Catholic grandsons. Will the grandparents say, look, this is a continuation of me?
No.
So it's a tough issue. Children have a way of becoming demanding realities. There can be no more theories when a child asks, Dad, are you coming to church today? Should the child be asked to choose the preferable religion? What happens? They both grow up. I'm going to offer him the choice. That is very democratic.
It's a lot easier to go with the majority than with the minority, no matter how nice the minority is.
Right. So it's very democratic and very thoughtful, but to do so involves choosing one parent over the other as well. Worst of all, who is the child? There's a famous story of Benjamin Disraeli. Benjamin Disraeli was baptized for his bar mitzvah. his father had a very big political battle with the members of his synagogue. So he went to the ultimate. In those days, there was only one synagogue in the whole of England, Bevis Marks. And the father was involved. He had a political battle with the board. Said, "To hell with you guys! I'm becoming a Christian." He baptized his whole family. Benjamin Disraeli became a Christian at the age of 13. That was his bar mitzvah gift. He grew up to be the prime minister, one of the best prime ministers of England. And
He also passed a lot of laws of tolerance.
right. Queen Victoria, who was a
He never
friend of his.
forgot that, he never
I forgot, with his name like his, how could he forget? Disraeli? Come on, with a nose like his, how could They all made fun of him. No one let him forget. But anyway, he was married, never had any children. Queen Victoria, who was a friend of his, asked him one day, he says, "Tell me, Benjamin," he says, Queen Victoria, who was a
He never
friend of his.
forgot that, he never
I forgot, with his name like his, how could he forget? Disraeli? Come on, with a nose like his, how could They all made fun of him. No one let him forget. But anyway, he was married, never had any children. Queen Victoria, who was a friend of his, asked him one day, he says, "Tell me, Benjamin," he says, "what do you feel inside? Do you feel you're Jewish? Do you feel Christian? What do you feel? What do you feel?" He says, "Look," he says, he takes a book of the Bible. He opens the Old Testament, he says, "Look, I'm not here." He opens the New Testament, he says, "I'm not here either." Where is he? He opens to the middle of the Bible and says, "Do you see these blank pages? That's me. I'm neither here nor there, I'm the blank in the middle." So that's the problem with where the children are going to be. So that's one of the problems. On the other hand, it has advantages. As I heard one day, one kid says, he says, "Look how lucky this kid is. He celebrates Hanukkah and Christmas. He gets double the gifts, So that could be the advantage. So the post-emancipation period has taught us that Jewish survival is no easier, and certainly no more assured in conditions of freedom than under persecution. The statistics said if no Jews would have left their faith, how many Jews would there be today? That's right, 250 million. Imagine the population of America. We lost an amazing man in Spain. It's one of the biggest losses. A quarter, and some say half, of the known Jewish population of the world converted to Christianity at that time, forcibly. Lost half. Spain, Portugal, later on. Portugal. So very tough choices were posed to Jews. In Muslim countries, when Muhammad started, he gave the Jews choice: convert or be killed. Or the Jews converted. Till recently in Greece, before the Second World War, you had a secret group of Muslims, very much like Marranos, secret Jews. Imagine Muslims who are secretly Jewish. There was a minister in Turkey who was called by everyone a Jew, even though he was a Muslim, because he was called by everyone else as a Jew, even though he wasn't a Jew. No, there was one. He wasn't a Jew. Was he Jewish? He was a secret Jew. He was from the secret Jews. So anyway, so that's
They're in Arizona and New Mexico. They're what they
Marranos,
call
descendants of Marranos.
crypto
Right.
Jews.
Descendants of the Marranos. They're still going on today. They still do the same things.
But
They go
the
to
thing
church,
is,
they do the
some
same
of them
things.
Some of them know they're Jewish, and some of them don't know they're
Well,
Jewish.
they don't know they're Jewish. They know they're descended from Jews. That's what
Yeah,
they know.
but some of them think that some of them found out that not all Catholics light candles every Friday night. Or
Right. That's how they realize something's fishy over here. I had a case when I was in Vancouver. A guy came to me. He came from South America. He had a very old Spanish name, a Jewish name. And he says, Catholic for many generations, he says he knows that his family only marries with certain other families. They always keep amongst themselves. They always intermarried amongst themselves. And they have these strange customs, lighting candles. What is his status, he asked me. Can I be considered a Jew or not? I said, no, I'm sorry, you can't. Unless you have 100% proof. Going back, all your mother's line, going back all your
The
lineage.
reading a few years ago, there was someplace in South America where they were investigating.
Yeah, they
In
investigate all
Israel,
over.
to investigate to see
There's
if
a-
they were actually Jews. I don't
There's a
know
group in
where
Israel
it was.
called
Was it
Amishav.
Chile or someplace Peru or someplace like
Peru. There was a whole tribe of Indians that converted to Judaism, and they moved to Israel. They're living in Israel now. Same thing in Portugal. They found a whole town. There are towns in Portugal that are still Marranos today. Everyone goes down Friday night to this basement and they light candles. And then they go to church on Sunday morning. Very strange. Okay. So that's the problem today we're facing in terms of freedom. So on the one hand, persecution, problems. Freedom also has its problems. That's interesting because last week we read in the parasha, when the Jews moved to Egypt, one of the things that Jacob requested was he live in Goshen. And Joseph also went along with that. He wanted the Jews to live in Goshen, which is not in the midst of Egypt. It's on the side boundaries of Egypt. Why was that? That could have been the first ghetto. Here were the Jews requesting to live in a ghetto. Why? In terms of survival, it's much easier. There's no question about it. So however much the ghettos did to us, one thing they couldn't take away was Jewish identity. This freedom which we have today is eroding the Jewish identities, which is very unfortunate. Here we have the freedom of religion. We're not taking advantage of it. We don't really appreciate it. You know, how long did Jews fight for this right? Be free to worship whoever you want. Here we have it. What do we do with it? We're free so what? Who cares? That's it. It's unfortunate. So the post-emancipation period has taught us that Jewish survival is no easier in conditions of freedom than under persecution. Indeed, while the Jewish people have demonstrated the capacity to survive oppression, it has yet to prove that it can survive liberty and equality. So we've survived persecution. Can we survive liberty? What is now needed is nothing short of a new type of martyrdom. Not a martyrdom to die for the religion, but to live for religion. To live to be Jewish. At the cost of unpopularity and the risk of rejection. It's a very high thing to do. In the end, however, the choice of whether to marry or out or not is a highly personal decision, little influenced by communal policies and attitudes. The real argument to be overcome is, as long as we are happy together, who cares what the rest of the world thinks? Who cares about anything else? We're happy. And today more and more parents say the same thing. I don't care, as long as my son's happy, as long as my daughter's happy, let them be happy. You know, I'm a nice Jewish parent, I care about whether they're happy or not. Okay. The experience may show, as in fact it does, the rate of marriage failures and divorces is twice as high in mixed marriages as in normal marriages. Sociological surveys may also indicate that children brought up in a spiritual no man's land are more prone than others to end up in misery and mischief. Let's take a couple of cases recently on the news. Joel Rifkin, son of Sam. Amy Fisher. Howard Stern. Very mixed up guy. They're all, look at them. But no couple in the flush of love thinks or even fears that theirs will be among the marriages to strike disaster, that their children will turn out as misfits. Young people no more believe that they will land on the wrong side of the statistics than do inveterate smokers. So love is even more irresistible addiction than smoking. So what we have to do is we have to teach our children that a good time is not the end.
It's not just a matter of love, though.
What is it?
It's a matter of, like, people who
Convenience?
get to be my age and are still single and haven't met the right person, right Jewish person, and they're meeting people who aren't Jewish, and they go, well, maybe it's better to be married and have somebody than be alone. You know, and the thing is that the Jewish community is not addressing it well enough. They're not making enough of an effort to get single people to meet other Jewish single people. They're not, especially, I mean, if you take 2 steps out of New York City, if you take 2 steps out of Manhattan,
Finished.
never mind New York
Finished.
City. It's
That's
like,
where it's happening, Debbie.
there's nothing.
Maybe you should move there.
No thanks, I don't want to live in
For a
New
while,
York
just for a
City.
while. A couple of
I don't
days.
want to live in New York.
Give it a chance.
I lived there 9 years. That's
We'll
enough.
set you up over there.
I lived there 9
It goes
years.
back to the story about the watch. If children,
Yeah, but
brought
it's
up
just-
around
it's too
other
much.
Jewish children, that's the children are
Too
going to
many.
meet, and that's the children are going to
Hopefully.
marry.
Hopefully.
You know, if
Hopefully,
they
yeah.
don't have a watch, don't sit next to them.
Right. So that's a
They don't
problem.
have a what?
A watch.
A watch. Oh, you missed the story about the watch.
Oh,
Yeah.
So that's a cult of happiness, is that happiness is the main thing. To Jews, this notion is particularly obnoxious. The cult of happiness could have saved the Jewish people 2,000 years of agony. They just opted out. Look, there'll be no Jews today. No agony, no suffering, no nothing. Just close Israel down. That's what they're trying to do. Just close it down. Get out. No fights, no wars, no nothing, and forget about everything. That's the cult of...
Where would this world be today if all the Jews had been gone? It probably wouldn't be here anymore. I don't want to sound chauvinistic or anything, but...
Okay, so what happened was, they did not pursue happiness. You know, the Talmud says something interesting. It says, a person who pursues honor, honor runs away from him. The person who runs away from honor, that's the person who honor runs after. Same thing with happiness. The more you pursue happiness, the more it eludes you. And the person thinks, you know, I'm going to buy this thing, I'm going to be happy. What happens? They buy it, they have it for a week, look for something else now. I'm going to climb Mount Everest, then I'm going to be happy. Climb Mount Everest, now what? What am I going to do now with my life? So happiness is constantly eluding a person. The truth is, sacrifice brings happiness. You feel something worthwhile. What is happiness? Happiness is feeling, I did something worthwhile today. I've really done something in my life, my happiness. So the person achieving brings happiness. But achieving things takes a lot of pain. Despite their ordeals, Jews loved life more passionately. They clung to life more tenaciously. They mourned with the dead with greater grief than anyone else. Jewish life, however grim, externally was infinitely precious, beautiful, and full of joy. So that is something which, you know, what we have to try and inculcate is this idea that being happy overrides everything is a fallacy. I have another article here written by Dennis Prager and Joseph Toloshkin. They wrote a book which is imperative that everyone should read. 9 questions. Yes, not movement. He writes some articles.
Yeah, I mean that's where I'm familiar.
Right, but he has a very good book called 9 Questions People Ask About Judaism. Excellent book. People should read that. Excellent book. He also has an article over here. Why are so many young Jews alienated from Judaism and the Jewish people? Many Jewish parents claim that they gave their children everything they did not have as children. The problem is they never gave them what they had as children. They gave them everything they never had as children. What did they give them? They didn't give them anything they did have as children. The Jewish identity they had as children, they didn't give their children. Next to, that's one of the stories I heard. In the 50s, where Jews were moving out of Brooklyn, the inner cities, Bronx, everything's falling apart. They're moving into the Green Belt. On Long Island, places where there was no Jewish schools, no nothing. And they said, you know why we're moving here? We're moving there for the sake of our children. To give our children a better start in life. So one of the Rosh Yeshivas at the time, he says, he gives a story to illustrate this. He says, you know what this can be compared to? Compared to someone whose house is on fire. And he's running in and out, crazy. He's taking out the furniture, he's taking out the clothes. And a person stops him and says, why are you risking your life? He says, I'm doing this for my children, so they'll have something. He says, where are your children? He says, they're inside the house. I forgot. He says, look, they're doing everything for the children, but they don't think about the children themselves. What are they going to grow up as? So that's the problem, which what happened in the 50s, and we're reaping the benefits of the problems which happened because of that. Is Jews moved out to the suburbs before preparing the infrastructure, the schools, the communities, which to receive them. They just moved out, blind, and that's it. So that's the problem, which they gave their children everything they never had. They never gave the children what they had. It was a Jewish environment in which to grow up. So next to the survival of Israel, the issue that weighs heavily upon Jews, and unfortunately people don't think about it, is the loss of Jewish identity among many young Jews. How can we bring our youth back? That is the question we must face. For the great majority of young Jews who abandon Jewish identity, it is not Judaism, but a caricature of Judaism they are rejecting. What is the caricature of Judaism? When people think about Judaism today, what do they think about?
It's like Fiddler on the Roof Judaism.
Fiddler on the Roof Judaism, not that bad.
No, the thing is, Fiddler on the Roof Judaism is this this is what they saw on the screen,
Right.
but it's nothing like what Judaism is
Right,
in the real
100%.
world.
Right, it's a caricature.
Yeah.
That's what we're saying is, but unfortunately people think worse than that. What do you think about Judaism is?
Portnoy's complaint. Goodbye Columbus, Judaism.
Whatever it is, something they think about. Usually they think about fundraising. They think about bagels and lox.
Mm-hmm.
What else do they think about? Gefilte fish? What is it? Pickled herring? Who knows what they think about? They think about Judaism. It's lost its meaning today. It's unfortunate. So rejecting a caricature of Judaism, they're rejecting. So instead of portraying Judaism as the all-encompassing value system and way of life, which it is, most parents treat Judaism as if it were a pastime. It's something which, you have to be, but it's not really important. There are other more important things in life. Most Jewish parents repeatedly convey the impression that Judaism is of secondary importance, and this can be illustrated in a variety of ways. Let us visit a typical Jewish home on the day when the promising young college junior or senior announces what profession he or she has chosen to pursue on graduation. So what is it? What are the parents sitting there hearing? What do you want to be when you grow up? The child says, I want to be a doctor. Oh, beautiful, my son's going to be a doctor. He's going to be a lawyer. Beautiful, a lawyer. Architect, beautiful. I'm going to be a rabbi.
No job for a Jewish
That's the problems we're facing today. I'm going to be a teacher. A teacher in a Hebrew school? Crazy. So after recuperating from shock, the parents will probably protest loud against this decision, which contradicts values they have been reinforcing throughout their careers as parents. What is the thing we've been reinforcing as parents? What type of professional their child becomes is of far greater significance than what type of Jew he or she becomes. Let me give you an example from my... She appreciates it more than anything else.
It sounds like my brother is going for smicha right now, and my mother's more concerned that he finishes his college degree and that he gets his degree in computers than, he wants to go into chinuch.
Right,
she wants him to be a programmer.
There you are. That's it. That's where we're losing. We're losing the battle. So because Jewish parents have been far more interested in producing accomplished professionals than accomplished Jews, the Jewish community suffers from a surfeit of accomplished professionals who are alienated Jews. So they're great professionals, but they're terrible Jews, or other Jews. So how often we hear of the parents speaking of their wonderful son, doctor, the lawyer, the professor, only to add softly, who doesn't care about being Jewish. So that's the problem which we're facing, is the stress on secular values, universal values. Another reason young Jews become convinced that Judaism is of little consequence is that fearing that their children will become too Jewish. God forbid, he may become religious. Oh God, religious? Oh no, that's the end of the world, the pits of the world.
I heard stories from these people who are involved in deprogramming,
Right.
anti-missionary stuff.
They'll join a cult.
They joined a cult of
Or Sameach.
Jesus, and the parents would come to this organization and they'd say, our son or daughter is involved in this cult, and they said, well, the first place you should have him get involved with Lubavitch. Oh, well, I don't want him to be too religious. They were more concerned that they should become too religious
Then joining a cult.
than joining the cult. It was worse to become Lubavitch than to join the cult.
I have cousins who are upset because their daughter got married to someone who's more Orthodox than they are, and now they show on Shabbos, because it screws up their whole schedule. They can't go visit him on Saturday, they can't do this.
That's a famous joke. It says, a man told his son, he says, never, never, never marry a shiksa, which means never marry a non-Jew. So having the son, he went to college, he met a nice girl, he married her. So they wanted to do it right, they went and converted. The girl converted, she said, look, I don't want to go Reform, I don't want to go Conservative, I want to go Orthodox. She went the whole 9 yards. So the guy comes home to visit his son. So today is the Sabbath, sorry. You can't write, you can't travel by car, we can't go anywhere, we can't do anything. So I told you, he says, never marry a shiksa, I told you. So that's the irony, because the non-Jews become better Jews than the Jews. I had a case in my community in Vancouver. where an Israeli fellow, he met a non-Jewish girl, he married her. Yeah, he told the rabbi converted her. So whatever. It took a couple of years. She converted. She became the most religious member of my synagogue. And then he said, "Rabbis, what do you do to her? She's driving me crazy. I didn't want to marry her like this. If she'd have been like this, I'd never married her. So what is going on over here?"
My aunt heard a story about this guy was going out with a non-Jewish woman, and she decided to convert. And after she converted, she wouldn't go out with him anymore because he wasn't religious enough for her, because he would have gone because he went out with a non-Jewish girl.
That's right. Okay, so that's it. So that's the way it should be. So it's not against non-Jews; it's against the idea we're going to lose the ideals of Judaism. Judaism is not a race; it's a way of life, and that's what we have to keep, is the way of life. So that's what we have to. Another reason young Jews become convinced that Jews is a little consequence is because of being too Jewish. Their parents tell them, don't become too religious, don't become too Jewish.
Well, there's a problem. One of the problems in modern day, in modern life, is that people see what you're talking about, the caricature again. The guy who goes to shul every day and everything, and then he cheats in business.
Right.
And the thing is that a lot of people have come to associate the ultra-Orthodox with the guy that cheats in business, and the one who doesn't cheat in business with not going to shul.
Right.
And it's better to be a good person
than a good Jew. But
people have to be taught that
that's a
the
misconception.
guy that cheats in business
is not a religious
no more
Jew.
a religious Jew just because he goes to shul every day.
Yeah, we had a whole topic on that.
But the thing is that there are a lot of people that don't know that.
It's a caricature.
They think just because somebody calls himself religious, he's religious.
Okay, another problem which we're facing is the problem of not being able to give answers to our children. Because children, as children, they ask questions. Why this? Why that? What for? What fit? Huh?
Oh boy, do they.
Do they ask questions?
Oh, yeah.
What age do they start?
As soon as they can talk.
2.5?
As soon as they
As
can
soon
talk.
as they can talk.
Sometimes even before they can talk.
A lot
So
of
that's
questions about God.
Okay, really?
Yeah, Rhonda's better at answering that.
Okay. So that's it. So that's, if you don't know the answers, who are they going to go to? They're going to go and find the questions. My dad doesn't know answers. He's Jewish. He doesn't know the answers. What is going on here? Who are they going to go to for answers? So a person's got to be prepared to offer reasoned, meaningful answers to their children's questions.
Or at least give them a good spiritual leader to ask if they
Yeah,
don't have
right,
the answer.
100%. Or just guide them to who to ask, to where they should go.
You said if you belong to a Reformed temple and the only person you have to ask these questions to is a Reformed rabbi, you're not going to get very good answers.
Okay, that's a famous joke. A rabbi, when a person bought a Rolls Royce, so he went to the Orthodox rabbi. He says, "Is there a blessing on a Rolls Royce?" He says, "What's a Rolls Royce?" So he went to conservative rabbi. He says, "Rabbi, is there a blessing on a Rolls Royce?" The rabbi says, "I don't know. I'll look it up for you. Go and examine the books." He went to the Reform rabbi. He says, "Rabbi, is there a blessing on a Rolls Royce?" He says, "What's a blessing?" So that's okay. Yes, there's a nice young rabbi teaching conversion classes over here. In this article, here we have Rabbi Rachel Cohen instructing interfaith couples, and she herself is a convert. Anyway, so that's so questions are very, very important. Questions are very, very important. I'll just end up with a story. It says Rabbi Riskin. Heard of Rabbi Riskin? Mm-hmm. Very, very famous, young, dynamic rabbi who turned around, Manhattan. Yeah. He turned around Lincoln Square area with the young singles. Today, not so much. Today, it's more middle-aged crowd. He's now an Ephrat. I hope he has a place to go to when they finish with him. Hope Ephrat is still on the map. Anyway, so he says he had about 300 cases of parents coming to him. Rabbi, do something. Save my son or daughter. They're going out with non-Jews. Help us. Do something. Help us. He says, with all his eloquence, he could only help one case. That's 1 out of 300. He says, by the time they're going out, it's too late. Mm-hmm. Nothing you can do. Nothing you can do. So really we've got to work at a very young age, and he's one of the best people around. He says that, how much more so everyone else? Please tell him.
It's amazing he was even able to do something about one of the cases.
Right. Numerous experiences, however, tell us that it's never too late to begin to study and live Judaism, thereby eventually influencing a child. If you are asking your child to make a life-changing decision, you must do the same. Otherwise, your words will be as futile as they are. So as a person, I'm not living a Jewish life. I tell my son or daughter, you have to be a Jew and marry a Jew. Look, you're a hypocrite. Who are you? What kind of Jew are you? So a person has to start, the family have to start, the parents have to start themselves if they want to bring back the children. Even if a son or daughter seems completely alienated from Judaism, or is planning to marry a non-Jew, or even if he has already intermarried, it may not be too late to influence them to consider Judaism as a way of life. So that is something which people have to think about. The families have to think about. How can we push Judaism? And the answer is by example. If people see an example, then they reciprocate. I've seen whole families change because one person in the family became religious. How? Has some sort of tidal effect. Now this guy, everyone knows him, his family, they say, this guy, you see him walking around with the yarmulke or whatever, they're influenced. There's an influence in the family. Just one person changes, it can have repercussions, 70 members of the family may change.
Like
amazing repercussions.
My sister's husband, my brother-in-law, his family is, they're like conservative. They belong to a conservative temple. They're like candles Friday night, but they're not Shomer Shabbos. And he married my sister, became Shomer Shabbos, and now both of his sisters are Shomer Shabbos, and they're looking for Shomer Shabbos guys.
See, unfortunately, it happens the other way around as well. One member of the family intermarries, and usually a lot of people in the family also. So the effects are both ways. We have to measure the effects. But fortunately, mature people are open to new ideas, and Judaism may be considered a new idea to many Jews. Because many Jews don't know anything about Judaism. It has never been presented to them in a rational, logical way. They don't know what's going on. I'm a Jew. What I know about Judaism, all I know is this, and that's it.
They probably know more about Christianity than they know about Judaism.
They did a survey. And this is not just anyone. Leaders of the Federation. They asked them, who were the 12 sons of Jacob, and who were the 12 disciples of Jesus? You might note the similarity in the numbers over here. They came out with the disciples of Jesus. The sons of Jacob eluded them.
And that's I could knock them off very easily.
Okay.
I have no idea who the apostles.
Okay, well look at your upbringing.
Yeah, that's true.
The apostles were all Jews too.
Who was Moses' mother and who was Jesus' mother? Al, who was Moses' mother? Yocheved.
Mary.
Why is this? What is going on? We know more about other religions than we know about our own. Okay? So this is a tremendous problem we're facing. So that's something which we have to present, that mature people are open to new ideas, and this is a new idea. And we have to experiment with the new ideas of the Jewish way of life. If it's presented with sophistication and warmth, then hopefully things will change. But that is really one of the problems we're facing today in America. I'll stop here. Any questions?
Federation leaders.
Federation, God, this.
Yeah, the Federation.
Well, all I can think of, if the Federation doesn't do anything, they're not going to have anyone to give money anymore. There's not going to be any people around to give.
You will never.
This is a true story about a guy who went to the rabbi. And the parents said, look, have a meeting with him, he's getting married. So what did he tell him? He told him a story. He says, imagine a person comes up to you on the street and presents you with a sealed envelope and says, in this envelope is $1 million. Yeah, you don't know this person, you don't know anything, but anyway, gives you an envelope, he says, $1 million inside the envelope. Are you going to throw away the envelope, or are you going to open it up at least to take a look at it? So he said, what's the connection? He said, look, he says, Judaism is 3,000 years old. It's 3,400 years old. There's values over there which kept people alive and going through the worst times. Maybe there is a message in Judaism worthwhile. Wouldn't you at least open the envelope? Wouldn't you at least examine it? So the guy thought about it. He went to
He went to yeshiva for a month. At least he was open-minded enough to examine it. So before I make this decision, I'm going to go and learn and see if there's anything in the envelope. He went to yeshiva. She also decided she's going to go to yeshiva. They both went to yeshiva. And they both married afterwards. So a true story. It's happened. I'm going to stop here.